The biting cold enveloped the streets of London as the twinkling lights of Christmas decorations tried to warm the icy atmosphere. In a small, dark alley at the heart of the city stood an old abandoned bookstore. The rusty sign swayed faintly in the chilly wind, once announcing Merrydale Bookstore. The bookstore's history was shrouded in mysteries. It was said that strange events had once occurred there, but people had gradually forgotten these rumors over the years. However, that year, a curious bookseller named Eleanor decided to temporarily reopen the place during the holiday season, hoping to bring life back to this forgotten spot. The first days passed without incident, but as Christmas approached, strange events began to unfold. Sinister whispers seemed to hover between the dusty shelves, and books appeared to change places every night. Eleanor, however, attributed these phenomena to her imagination. One night, as she was closing the bookstore, Eleanor heard muffled footsteps behind her. She turned around, seeing no one. The Christmas light suddenly flickered, plunging the bookstore into darkness. Panicked, she headed towards the exit, but the door creaked violently, locking itself. Eleanor found herself alone, illuminated only by the faint glow of the flickering decorations. Shadows danced between the shelves. She heard voices whispering her name, voices that seemed to emanate from the old dusty books. Terrified, she grabbed a lantern and began to wander through the bookstore in search of the source of these voices. As she advanced, the whispers transformed into demonic laughter. The books seemed to come to life, their pages turning frenetically, revealing terrifying images. Eleanor now understood that she was not alone, but surrounded by a malevolent presence haunting this place. She discovered an old grimoire resting on a wooden desk. Upon opening it, mysterious symbols glowed in the darkness. An invisible force compelled her to recite the words written on the page, unleashing a dark energy that engulfed the bookstore. The books whirled in the air, emitting ghostly cries. Suddenly, everything stopped. The Christmas lights brightened, and the bookstore returned to calm. Eleanor stood amidst the chaos, the grimoire in her hands. She realized that the bookstore was the site of an ancient malevolent ritual, and she had inadvertently released the imprisoned spirits. London regained its composure after that cursed night, but Merrydale Bookstore remained closed forever. It is still told today that every Christmas, tormented spirits return to haunt the old bookstore, seeking to lure curious souls into their spectral realm. And the tale of Eleanor and the cursed bookstore lingers in the dark alleys of London, reminding everyone that some doors should never be opened. The cobblestone streets of London were shrouded in the darkness of a moonless night. Thick mist snaked between the old buildings, lending the city a mysterious atmosphere. At the corner of a narrow alley stood an imposing, dilapidated mansion, abandoned for decades. The Blackthorn Manor, as it was once called, had been the scene of dark events during the 19th century. Rumor had it that the Blackthorn family had practiced occult rituals in the depths of the manor, attracting malevolent forces that ultimately led to their downfall. Over the years, the building had been forsaken, deemed cursed by the neighborhood residents. However, a group of intrepid adventurers, seeking to push the limits of their courage, decided to breach the decaying walls of Blackthorn Manor on a dark summer night. The doors creaked ominously as they pushed them open, releasing a scent of mold and despair. As they ventured into the dark hallways, inaudible whispers seemed to resonate through the walls, murmuring unspeakable warnings. Suddenly, a door creaked open on its own, revealing a once luxurious room, now in ruins. In the center of the room, an old wall clock ticked ominously, its rusted mechanism seemingly defying time. The group froze, sensing an indescribable presence watching them. As they explored further, strange visions assailed them. Shifting shadows danced in the corners of their eyes, and echoes of hysterical laughter reverberated in the emptiness. Each door they crossed brought them closer to the unknown, and the boundary between reality and the supernatural seemed to blur. At the heart of the manor, they discovered an underground chamber adorned with esoteric symbols. An invisible force drew them to the center of the room, compelling them to repeat mystical incantations. As their voices rose, the darkness seemed to thicken, and ancient curses were awakened. Blackthorn Manor trembled as if coming back to life. Shadows swirled in the room, coalescing to form distorted silhouettes. The adventurers realized they had unleashed the tormented souls of the Blackthorn family, condemned to wander eternally between dimensions. Terrified, they tried to escape, but the manor's doors slammed shut, imprisoning them in the growing darkness. The walls seemed to contract, distorting reality around them. The last thing they heard was the sinister laughter of vengeful spirits. Since that fateful night, Blackthorn Manor remains a cursed place, avoided by all who know its history. Some still claim to hear echoes of occult rituals in the wind that rushes through the broken windows, reminding the heedless that the manor has not forgotten its dark past. The cobbled streets of the old town of Lyon seem to breathe history. The facades of ancient buildings bore witness to the passage of time, but it was in a small bookstore nestled in the heart of the Traboul that the darkest story was about to unfold. The bookstore, Linger Mysterieuze, specialized in esoteric and ancient works. The owner, Mr. Leclerc, was a discreet man who had always maintained an air of mystery around his establishment. One day, a young woman named Camille, passionate about old books, crossed the door of the bookstore. Captivated by the enchanting atmosphere of the place, Camille spent hours exploring the dusty shelves. She discovered an old leather-bound book adorned with enigmatic runes. Intrigued, she bought it and decided to read it at home. From the first night, strange events began to occur. Inaudible whispers seemed to float in the air, and shifting shadows appeared on the walls of Camille's room. She heard light footsteps behind her, but when she turned around, no one was there. The pages of the book seemed to change every time she closed and reopened it. Mysterious symbols danced before her eyes, and she soon couldn't distinguish between dreams and reality. Nightmares haunted her, populated by ghostly silhouettes whispering indecipherable words. Concerned, Camille returned to the bookstore to question Mr. Leclerc about the book. However, upon her arrival, she found the bookstore deserted. Empty shelves and a chilling atmosphere seemed to testify to the sudden absence of the owner. Camille then understood that something unspeakable was linked to this book. The determined young woman delved further into the book, intent on unveiling the mystery. Paranormal manifestations intensified, taking on tangible forms. Spectral apparitions materialized in her apartment, repeating disturbing phrases. She was convinced that she had become the involuntary receptacle of dark forces. Resolved to end this nightmare, Camille embarked on a quest to understand the origin of the book and its malevolence. Her research led her to an ancient secret society that had once operated in the dark alleys of Lyon. She discovered that the book was linked to ancient rituals aimed at invoking unfathomable entities. Armed with this newfound knowledge, Camille attempted to sever the mystical connection between the book and supernatural forces. However, the boundary between the tangible world and the occult had become fragile, and the price to pay for breaking the bond was much higher than she could have imagined. The night she uttered the incantations to free her soul from the book, a storm broke out over Lyon. Lightning streaked across the sky, revealing ghostly silhouettes seemingly dancing in the darkness. When the storm subsided, the bookstore was once again plunged into silence, and Camille had vanished without a trace. Some claim they can still hear mysterious whispers near the Linger Mysterieuze bookstore in Lyon, and those who dare venture into its dark traboules may occasionally catch sight of a wandering silhouette, a shadow that seems to belong to another reality. The bookstore, meanwhile, remains closed, keeping its secrets in the corners of the old town. The rain beat violently against the windows of the old isolated house. The flickering lights added to the oppressive atmosphere. Emily, an independent photographer in search of unique subjects, had decided to spend a night in this abandoned house to capture its mysterious aura. As she explored each room, the air was charged with a strange energy. Floorboards creaked beneath her feet, and the shadows of dilapidated furniture seemed to expand and contract autonomously. Armed with her camera, Emily was not easily intimidated. She was there to capture the unexplainable. As the night progressed, strange events unfolded. Faint whispers seemed to creep from dark corners, and unpredictable shadows danced in her field of vision. The photographs she took sometimes revealed fleeting apparitions, indistinct silhouettes that defied explanation. Suddenly, in an upstairs room, Emily heard a distant sob. She followed the sound to an old wardrobe. Inside, she discovered an ancient dusty doll, its wide-eyed gaze fixed on her. The doll seemed imbued with a sinister presence. As she leaned in to photograph it, the door of the room slammed shut. Emily found herself locked in darkness, her heart pounding. She tried to force the door, but something on the other side seemed to keep it closed. The sob now echoed in the room, growing increasingly closer. Suddenly, the doll came to life. Its once fixed eyes stared at her with a chilling intensity. The sobs seemed to emanate from the doll itself. Terrified, Emily stepped back, but something irresistibly drew her toward the doll. The sobs turned into unintelligible whispers, and the atmosphere was saturated with an oppressive energy. Emily, unable to resist, began to feel an evil presence penetrating her. The whispers transformed into voices whispering unknown secrets. In an act of desperation, Emily managed to escape the room. She rushed down the stairs, but with each step, the air seemed heavier, more hostile. The walls seemed to close in on her, forcing her to confront the horror that permeated the house. On the ground floor, she found herself facing a dusty mirror. Her reflection did not match who she was. Shadows distorted her features, and her eyes reflected unspeakable terror. She realized that something had attached itself to her, something that would follow her even beyond the walls of the house. Terrified and exhausted, Emily escaped the house, leaving behind the darkness and horror that seemed to reside there. The photographs she had taken revealed unexplainable anomalies, but she knew that no image could capture the true terror she had experienced that night. Later, when she recounted her experience, paranormal experts shook their heads, doubting the authenticity of her story. However, Emily knew that she carried something with her, something that had transcended the bounds of explanation. And in the dark corners of her nights, she still heard the whispers of that terrifying night, an echo of horror that would never truly leave her.